What's the worst thing a parent can say to their own child? Not in anger, not in the heat of a fight, but coldly, calmly, in a room full of strangers. I found out the answer to that question on the worst night of my life, standing in a ballroom in my plain cream dress, holding a hospital bill that could save my mother's life, while the man who was supposed to love me looked me dead in the eye and said 5 words that broke something inside me forever. But that broken moment, it led me somewhere I never could have imagined. So stick around, because this story takes a turn that nobody, least of all me, saw coming. I got the call standing just outside the ballroom doors, my mother's hospital bill crushed in my fist. "Ms. Bennett," the nurse said softly on the other end, "your mother's surgery team can only hold the operating room for another 45 minutes. If the deposit isn't approved, we'll have to move her down the list." Behind those golden doors, my father was laughing with people who called him generous. Across town, my mother was lying under hospital lights, waiting for money that could keep her alive. I looked at the bill again, even though I already knew every single number on it by heart. I'd counted it on the bus, in the hospital bathroom, beside my mother's bed, and every single time, the answer stayed exactly the same. I didn't have enough. I'd promised myself I would never beg this man for anything. He'd walked out on us 12 years ago, married into a richer life, and slowly trained the entire world to forget we ever existed. But pride couldn't hold my mother's hand in an operating room. Pride couldn't keep her heart beating. A gold sign stood beside the entrance, nestled between white flowers, announcing some big investment partnership. I didn't fully understand what it meant yet. I only knew my father had filled the grand hotel ballroom with investors, reporters, board members, and every person he wanted to impress. I almost turned back. Then the nurse's words came back like a clock ticking inside my chest. 45 minutes. So I pushed open the doors and stepped into the kind of room where poor people become invisible the moment they walk in. Soft music played. Glasses shimmered under warm light. Women dripping in diamonds turned their heads just enough to measure my plain dress, my damp hair, my old shoes, before looking away again. My father stood near the stage with his wife and his daughter. His other daughter. The one he'd kept. She wore silver and a smile that had never once known hunger. His wife stood with a hand on his arm like she owned both the man and the room. For one painful second, my father's eyes met mine, and some foolish part of me thought that maybe blood would remember what pride had forgotten. I was wrong. His wife saw me first. Her smile faded, not with surprise, but with pure irritation. She leaned toward him and whispered something. And my father's face changed before I'd even taken my second step. Not with concern, not with guilt, with embarrassment. I walked toward him anyway, because my mother had 45 minutes, and dignity could wait. The closer I got, the quieter the room became. "Dad," I said, holding out the bill. My voice broke on the word, and I hated that it did. "Please, it's Mom. The hospital called. They'll move her off the surgery schedule if the deposit isn't approved." He looked at the paper, then at the guests watching him, then back at my face. And I saw the choice happen before he even spoke. His reputation mattered more to him than my mother's life. "I'm sorry," he said, coldly, clearly enough for the nearest guests to hear. "I don't know this young woman." Something inside me folded so quietly that nobody heard it break. His other daughter covered her mouth like she was hiding a smile. His wife lifted her chin and signaled for security. My father adjusted his cuff as if denying me had been a minor inconvenience before dinner. "Dad," I whispered again, softer this time, because some stupid part of me still believed a daughter's voice might reach him. His jaw tightened. "You are mistaken." A hand touched my arm. Security. And that touch brought me back to myself. I pulled away, not because I was strong, but because I couldn't bear to be dragged out while my father watched. My phone buzzed again. The nurse was calling. My mother's surgery slot was vanishing minute by minute, and the one man who could save her had just erased me in front of strangers. So I ran. I ran past flowers and mirrors and waiters and guests who stared at me like pain itself was shameful. I heard the other daughter say something behind me, and a few people laughed. I didn't stop. I turned into a quieter hallway, narrower than the lobby, my breath coming too fast, my phone still buzzing in my palm. At the end of the hall, a set of elevator doors was sliding shut. A small sign beside them read, "Private access." A guard inside had just entered a code, and the doors were closing on a group of men who very clearly did not belong to the ordinary world. I didn't think. I shoved my hand between the doors. The safety sensor pulled them back open, and I stumbled inside. And the world changed in a single breath. 4 men in black suits turned toward me, their hands moving toward their jackets with a speed that made my knees go weak. One of them stepped forward, ready to pin me against the wall. But the man in the center lifted one hand, and everyone stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Even the air seemed to obey him. He was dressed in black, calm, powerful, terrifyingly silent. Dark eyes, a trimmed beard, a gold chain barely visible at his throat. He had the stillness of a man who never needed to raise his voice. I didn't know his name yet. I only knew I had stepped into the wrong elevator. "I'm sorry," I gasped, stepping back, but the doors had already shut behind me. "I didn't know. I'll get out. His eyes dropped to the hospital bill crushed in my fist, then returned to my face. And for one strange second, it felt as if the guards, the city, the entire world had gone silent around him. Something shifted in his expression. Not softness, something sharper. Recognition, maybe, or surprise. "Who made you run?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but it reached places shouting never could. My throat burned. I wanted to say my father. I wanted to say poverty. I wanted to say the whole room that had just watched me become nobody. Instead, I whispered, "Please, I just need to get to my mother." The elevator kept descending because the private code had already been accepted. Nobody moved. The man kept looking at me, and I noticed something I couldn't quite understand. He wasn't watching me like a problem. He was watching me like someone had just walked into his life carrying the only thing he still valued. "Boss," one of the guards said, "private access was breached." The man didn't look away from me. "I can see that, Luca." Boss. That word landed in my chest with weight. The silence, the private elevator, the way everyone waited for permission to breathe. I hadn't run into a businessman's elevator. I'd run into danger. I didn't mean to. I said quickly, "I'll leave on the next floor." I reached for the buttons, but a guard shifted and I froze. The man pressed a button himself. The elevator didn't stop. It kept going down. "Which hospital?" he asked. I blinked. "What?" "Your mother. Which hospital?" "St. Agnes," I said before fear could stop me. "But I'm not asking you for anything. I just need to get there." "How much?" Heat rushed into my face. "No." His brows moved slightly. "No?" "No," I repeated, holding the bill closer to my chest. "I didn't come here to be bought by another powerful man." One of the guards looked at me like I'd just stepped closer to the edge of a cliff. My breath shook, but I forced myself to stand straight. The man studied me. "You think I want to buy you? I don't know what you want." Smart answer. His voice stayed quiet. Most people pretend they know me. They usually regret it. Fear crossed my face before I could hide it, and his tone changed. "I asked how much, because your hand is shaking, and your mother has less than 45 minutes. I swallowed. 39 now. Then we don't have time to argue. The elevator opened into an underground garage, bright with white light and lined with black cars. Men in dark suits stood beside them, suddenly all watching me. At the far end, a hotel manager froze when he saw the man step out, then lowered his eyes as if looking too long might be a mistake. The man walked out first, the others moving with him like shadows trained to follow a storm. He stopped beside the nearest car and looked back at me. "I can take you to the hospital, or you can keep your pride and lose time." The words hit hard because they were true. "Why?" I asked. "Why would you help me?" He looked at the bill in my hand, then at my face. "Because you didn't run into my elevator to save yourself. You ran for your mother." His answer took the air out of me. I looked down, because if I looked at him a second longer, I was afraid I'd break. "I'll pay you back," I said. "I'm not asking yet. I'm taking you there first." He opened the car door and stepped aside, giving me space instead of taking my arm. It confused me more than force would have. Men like him were supposed to take. My father had taken a whole life from my mother and called it moving on. Hospitals took money before they offered mercy. Rich people took dignity from anyone who walked in without the right shoes. But this man opened a door and waited, as if my choice mattered. I got in. He sat beside me. The guard, Luca, took the front. Another car pulled out behind us, and the garage gates opened. As the hotel disappeared, tears slipped down my face. I wiped them away fast, but his voice came from beside me. "You don't have to hide that." I almost laughed. It came out broken. People say that until tears make them uncomfortable. I'm difficult to make uncomfortable. Because you're used to people crying. Because I'm used to people lying. I turned my head. City lights moved over his face, carving him from shadow and control. "What's your name?" he asked. I hesitated. "Mira." "Mira what?" The name felt heavy in my mouth. "Bennett." The air in the car shifted. Luca glanced at the mirror. The man beside me went very still. "Bennett," he repeated. "It's just a name," I said, looking out the window. Names are rarely just names in rooms like that. I didn't answer. I was too tired to explain my father to a stranger, too ashamed to say the word daughter after he'd just refused it. "The sign outside the ballroom," I said instead. "The investment company. Is that you?" "Yes." My stomach sank. The man my father had invited to save his business had just walked out with the daughter my father had denied. "Then you should go back," I said. "He'll be waiting for you." "Let him wait. You don't even know me." "I know enough." "No, you don't. You know I ran into your elevator. You know my mother's sick. You know I don't have the money. That doesn't mean you know me." For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. "There she is." "What?" The woman hidden under the panic. My father had seen my desperation and called security. This man saw my anger and looked almost relieved. "Who are you?" I asked, though some part of me already feared the answer. "Alessio Romano." I'd heard the name before. Everyone in the city had, usually in lowered voices. The man newspapers politely called a private investor, because newspapers liked staying in business. The man whose enemies lost their companies, their court cases, and sometimes the nerve to stay in the city at all. My body went cold. "No," he said calmly. "Just Alessio." "Please don't," I started before pride could stop me. His face changed sharply. Not anger, something older. Pain buried so deep it almost looked like rage. "Who taught you to ask that quickly?" My fingers twisted together. "Life." He looked out the window for a moment, jaw tight. Then he said, "I'm not going to hurt you, Mira." St. Agnes appeared ahead, white and bright and merciless. Before the car had fully stopped, I reached for the door, but Alessio moved first, not touching me, only blocking the handle. "Wait." "My mother. You'll reach her faster if people move out of your way." He stepped out first, and the hospital reacted the instant he entered. Security straightened. A man at reception dropped his pen. The night supervisor came around the counter, saw Alessio, and forgot whatever he'd been about to say. Nobody said his name, but everybody seemed to know it. The nurse from the phone call rushed forward. "Ms. Bennett, I'm so sorry. The surgeon is waiting, but accounting still needs approval before they can keep the specialist assigned." "Take her to her mother," Alessio said. "Sir, hospital policy requires..." Alessio turned slightly toward Luca, who stepped to the counter with a black card and opened his phone. Romano Holdings is listed under your private donor emergency account. Authorize the deposit now. The operating room stays reserved. The receptionist went pale and started dialing. My stomach dropped. No. Alessio looked at me. Mira. I said no. I don't want my mother's life turned into a debt I owe with my soul. The lobby went silent. Alessio didn't interrupt. He stepped closer, slowly enough that I didn't move back. Listen carefully. I am not buying your silence, your gratitude, or your future. I'm buying your mother time. Hate me after she survives if you need to, but let her survive first. My mouth trembled. I hated that his words reached the part of me that wanted to collapse. Ms. Bennett, please, the nurse said gently. We need to move now. I looked at the card, then at Alessio. I'll pay you back. If that helps you stand, say it. I mean it. Then I believe you. Nobody had said that to me in a very long time. My mother looked smaller than she had that morning, surrounded by machines, a thin blanket over her body. But her eyes opened when I came in. Mira, she whispered. I fell beside her bed and took her cold hand. I'm here. You went to him. I couldn't lie. I'm sorry. Don't be. He denied us, I said, and my voice broke. He looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was nothing. My mother closed her eyes, and a single tear slipped down her temple. I hate him. She squeezed my hand weakly. No, you don't. I want to. That's different. I pressed my forehead to her hand. I couldn't get the money. Then why are they preparing me? I swallowed. A man from the hotel helped. Alessio Romano. Fear entered her eyes fast. Mira, you don't know men like that. I didn't ask him. He saw the bill. He paid before I could stop him. She tried to sit up, but pain caught her. Powerful men don't give without wanting something. He said he bought me time, not me. She stared at me. Did you believe him? I thought of the elevator. His raised hand stopping the guards. The way he'd asked who made me run. The way he gave me space before opening the car door. I don't know, I whispered. But I wanted to. Her face softened. Be careful with wanting, baby. It can sound like safety when you're tired. Before I could answer, the surgeon came in. Consent forms, nurses, wheels unlocking. My mother's bed began moving toward the operating room, and panic rose in my throat. Mom! She turned her head toward me. Stand straight, Mira. I'm scared. I know. But don't give fear the last word. I walked beside her bed until the double doors stopped me. A nurse held out a hand. You have to wait here. My mother looked at me one last time. His shame is not yours. Then the doors opened and took her away. I stood there after they closed, staring at the place where she'd disappeared. For the first time that night, I had nothing to run toward. No ballroom, no elevator, no counter, no father to beg, no mother's hand to hold. Just a hallway, a debt I hadn't chosen, and a dangerous man waiting somewhere behind me. When I turned around, Alessio stood at the far end of the corridor. Not close enough to intrude, not far enough to leave. She's in surgery, I said. Then she has a chance. My eyes burned again. Why are you still here? He looked past me toward the surgery doors. Because waiting alone is harder. I didn't know what to do with that. It was too simple, too human, and it came from a man everyone feared. I sat down because my legs were shaking. He sat 2 chairs away. Luca brought coffee I didn't drink. Hospital time stretched and paused and punished. After nearly 2 hours, Luca's phone vibrated. He read it, leaned close to Alessio, and spoke quietly. Alessio's eyes moved to the elevators, then back to me. Richard Bennett is here. My stomach tightened. For my mother. His silence answered before his words did. He came after calling 3 board members to ask whether I'd return to the hotel. My father hadn't come because my mother was fighting for her life. He'd come because Alessio had left his meeting. "Do you want him stopped?" Alessio asked. Part of me wanted to say yes. Another part was tired of hiding from a man who'd already abandoned me. "No, let him come." Alessio nodded once and stood. "I'll be at the nurse station." "Why?" "Because some men only tell the truth when they think no one important can hear them." He stepped away, far enough that my father would think I was alone, close enough that I wasn't. A few minutes later, Richard stepped out of the elevator, his wife and other daughter behind him. He searched the corridor for Alessio, and when he spotted him down the hall, some of the fear left his face, replaced by something colder. He thought I was alone. That made him confident. He walked toward me fast, but kept his voice low. "Do you understand what you've done? My meeting was tonight. Romano left because of you. My mother is in surgery." He pulled a check from his jacket and held it out. "Take this. Money. That's what you came for, isn't it? Pay the hospital, then leave. You will not go near Romano again. You will not tell him who you are. You will not tell him I'm your father. Tonight was a misunderstanding. That's all he needs to know." My chest tightened. "So you came because you're afraid he might find out I'm your daughter? Keep your voice down." "Why? Because truth sounds ugly when rich people hear it." His wife stepped closer. "Mira, don't be foolish. Your father is offering help." "No," I said, looking at the check. "He's offering silence." The other daughter crossed her arms. "You should be grateful." I looked at her, polished and untouched by hunger. "I did beg tonight. I begged my father to help save my mother. He said he didn't know me." Richard's face hardened, but he didn't shout. That made it worse. His cruelty wasn't wild, it was chosen. "You embarrassed me in front of important people. You forced my hand." "I forced your hand?" He pushed the check closer. "Take it, Mira. This is more than your mother ever received from me." For 1 second, the hallway blurred. My mother was behind those doors with her life open under a surgeon's hands, and he still spoke like she was an old mistake. My fingers closed around the check. Relief flashed across his face. Then I tore it in half. His wife inhaled sharply. The other daughter's mouth fell open. I dropped the pieces into the trash. "You came to the hospital because Alessio left your party, not because my mother might die. Without my name," Richard said. "You are nothing." The sentence filled the corridor. Maybe once it would have broken me. But now my mother's words stood between his shame and my heart. Slow, controlled footsteps sounded behind him, heavy enough to make my father turn. Alessio was walking back, and from the look in his eyes, I knew he'd heard enough. He didn't shout. He simply stopped beside me, not in front of me, and the whole corridor seemed to understand the difference. Richard's face lost color. "Mr. Romano, this is a private matter." Alessio looked at the torn check, then at Richard. "You made it public when you denied her in my ballroom." "There's been a misunderstanding." "No," Alessio said calmly. "For once, I think I understand perfectly. You told her that without your name, she's nothing." He paused. "Good. Then everyone should know she never needed your name to be worth something." The surgery doors opened behind us. A doctor stepped out, pulling down his mask. My heart stopped. He looked past Richard and found me. "Ms. Bennett, your mother made it through the surgery." My knees almost gave out. I pressed both hands over my mouth. My mother was alive. That was the only sentence my heart could understand. "She's stable for now," the doctor continued. "But the next 24 hours are important. You can see her soon." Behind me, Richard cleared his throat. "Doctor, I'm Richard Bennett. I'll be handling any further financial arrangements." "No," I said, weak but firm enough to stop him. "You don't get to arrive after the surgery and speak like you saved her. It was time 12 years ago." Alessio didn't move, but the air beside me changed. He didn't need to threaten anyone. His silence did what other men tried to do with volume. Over the next few days, something shifted between us. Not quickly, not like the stories where love arrives dressed as certainty. It came slowly, through hospital chairs and bad coffee, through the way Alessio never entered my mother's room without asking, through the way he remembered which side of the bed she liked me to sit on, through the way he never called Richard my father unless I did first. He sent no flowers with his name large enough to impress anyone. He sent a soft blanket because my mother complained the hospital one scratched her skin. He arranged a second opinion but asked me before confirming it. He made people move, but he never moved me. That was the difference I couldn't ignore. On the third day, Richard sent his lawyer with papers and an offer, a medical trust for my mother, in exchange for a statement saying the ballroom incident was a misunderstanding caused by stress. I pushed the papers back. My mother taught me that dignity only leaves when you hand it away. Tell Richard I'm not handing it over. 10 minutes later, Luca returned with a tablet. The smear online started from your half-sister's assistant. We recovered a message telling a gossip account to make the poor girl look unstable. Her words. My face went cold, but I wasn't surprised. They're lying about you, Alessio said. I will not let them destroy you in public with lies. What are you going to do? Nothing you don't approve of. And if I approve of nothing, then the proof stays locked. That was when I understood the real danger of him. It wasn't just that men obeyed him. It was that when he chose patience, he became even harder to resist. Tell me what you want, he said. Nobody had asked me that all day. I want my mother to wake up. I want my father to stop rewriting what happened. I want whoever started that rumor exposed with the truth, not punished in darkness. And I want to stand in a room one day and not feel ashamed because someone else abandoned me. Alessio nodded slowly. Then we start there. My mother woke the next morning, enough to know my name and squeeze my hand. When her eyes cleared and found Alessio near the door, the laughter left her face. Mr. Romano, Mira tells me you bought me time. She chose to let me. Mira doesn't know how to owe without bleeding herself dry. I've noticed. Then don't make kindness a chain. I won't. Men always say that. She paused to breathe. Prove it later. Why her? My face warmed. Mom. She ignored me. You're a man with enemies, money, and women who probably know how to smile in 5 languages. Why did you follow my daughter to a hospital? Alessio was silent long enough that I thought he might refuse. Then he said, because she was afraid and still proud. Because she needed help and still tried to protect her dignity. Because when she said mother, I remembered mine. My mother's expression changed. Gone? Yes. Too late. I had power by then. Not enough. Never where it mattered. She closed her eyes briefly. Then be careful. Grief can mistake someone for a second chance. Alessio didn't deny it. I know. Gratitude is not love, Mira, my mother said, turning to me. Rescue is not love. Do not give your heart just because someone arrived when others left. Then Alessio said quietly, she shouldn't. She shouldn't give me her heart because I paid a bill. If she ever gives me anything, it should be because I earned peace in her life, not because I ended one night of panic. My mother watched him for a long moment. Then, very faintly, she smiled. Good answer. The smear story got uglier before it got better. An article called me an unstable woman who'd tried to manipulate a prominent investor. No one used the word daughter. No one mentioned the surgery. I expected Alessio to explode. Instead, he grew colder, quieter, more precise. Tonight, Bennett is hosting the rescheduled investment dinner, he said. He needs to show the board he still has me. Do you still plan to go? Yes, for the truth. Then he said the impossible. Come with me. I laughed once. No. I'm not walking into another room full of people so they can stare at me again. This time you won't be running. That doesn't make it easier. No, but it makes it yours. My mother, who I thought was asleep, opened one eye. Go, I did not survive surgery so you could hide in hospital corridors while that man turns your pain into a rumor. What if I break? She touched my cheek. Then break standing. That evening, I wore the same cream dress. It had been cleaned, but one small mark near the hem refused to disappear. I thought about asking for something expensive, something to help me look like I belonged. Then I decided I wanted the room to see the same girl they had laughed at. Not upgraded, not hidden, just unashamed. We drove to the hotel in silence. When it came into view, my hands turned cold. The car stopped at the main entrance this time, not the garage. Cameras flashed as Alessio stepped out. He ignored the reporters and turned back, holding out his hand. The whole world seemed to pause around it. He read the fight in my face and lowered his hand, not offended. Your choice. That was why I took it. Not because I needed help out of a car, but because he'd let me choose whether to. Inside, the ballroom looked exactly as it had before. Same flowers, same gold light, but I was not the same. Richard saw me with Alessio, and his face froze. He hurried forward with a painfully false smile. Mr. Romano, and Mira, I'm glad you're feeling calmer tonight. Guests began to turn. Cameras lifted. Calmer? I asked. Last night was difficult. A family misunderstanding during a medical emergency. In the ballroom, you said you didn't know me. At the hospital, you told me not to tell Mr. Romano you were my father. The room quieted the way rooms do when truth walks in without an invitation. This is not appropriate, Richard said. No, I said, my voice shaking but carrying. What wasn't appropriate was letting my mother lie in a hospital bed while you protected your reputation. What wasn't appropriate was handing me a check so I'd hide who I was. What wasn't appropriate was calling me your daughter only after the man you needed chose to stand beside me. His wife stepped forward. This is cruel, Mira. So was my mother's heart. The half-sister laughed nervously. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Playing victim in front of everyone. And for the first time in my life, her beauty didn't make me feel smaller. No. I'm tired of being turned into the villain because I survived what your family did quietly. Then Alessio finally spoke. No, not enough. The entire room remembered who he was. Conversations died. Even the waiters stopped moving. He stepped forward, not toward the documents waiting on the table, but toward Richard. Last night, a woman ran into my elevator with a hospital bill in her hand, and more dignity than anyone in this room showed her. I watched you come to the hospital not to ask whether the woman you abandoned survived, but to offer your daughter money in exchange for silence. Mr. Romano, you're making a serious accusation. No. I'm giving everyone the courtesy of hearing it from me before they see the proof. Luca stepped forward and placed a tablet on the nearest table. The screen showed the hospital corridor. Richard pushing the check toward me, my hand tearing it, his voice clear. You will not tell him I am your father. Without my name, you are nothing. The room went silent in a different way now. Not shocked, convinced. His wife's hand slipped from his arm. Alessio looked at the half-sister. The smear online also started from your assistant's phone. Luca tapped the screen. A message appeared. Make the poor girl look unstable before Romano asks questions. A board member near the contract table closed his folder. An investor stepped away. Reporters began calling out questions. Alessio turned to the contracts. Romano Holdings will not invest in Bennett Development. Not tonight. Not ever. Richard's face lost all color. Then he did the one thing I didn't expect. He turned to me, not with love, but with desperation. Mira, you are my daughter. There it was. The word I'd wanted my whole life. It should have healed something. Instead, it showed me how empty a word becomes when it arrives only after power changes sides. No, I said, stepping closer. I was your daughter when my mother sold her wedding ring to pay rent. I was your daughter when I sent birthday cards you never answered. I was your daughter last night when I stood in this room with a hospital bill in my hand. I was your daughter when you said you did not know me. You don't get to claim me because losing me is suddenly expensive. The silence after that was complete. For years I'd imagined confronting him. In those fantasies I screamed, I cried, I demanded apologies. But standing there, I felt something quieter than anger and stronger than pain. I felt finished. Alessio turned to the room. St. Agnes Hospital will receive a donation tonight for a patient assistance fund in Elena Bennett's name. No family should have to beg for a surgery room while men like this buy applause with charity. My mother's name in that ballroom made my chest ache. I heard her voice in my head. Break standing. I had. Alessio walked toward the exit, then stopped and looked back. He didn't call me. He didn't hold out his hand. He waited. The choice was mine again. I looked once at Richard. He looked smaller now, not because he'd lost money, but because I no longer needed him to be bigger. Then I turned and walked out beside Alessio. Not behind him. Beside him. The hallway felt different this time. Same mirrors, same flowers, same private elevator at the end. But my feet didn't run. My breath didn't tear. When we reached it, Alessio pressed the button. The doors opened, and for one strange moment, I saw myself from the night before, stumbling in with tears on my face and a bill in my fist. I stepped in. He followed. The doors closed, shutting out the noise. "Last time I entered this elevator because I had nowhere else to go," I said. "This time I'm not running." Something in his face changed. The same small shift I'd seen the first night. Only now I understood it better. It wasn't weakness. It was a door opening in a man who'd spent years becoming a locked room. "Mira," he said quietly. "I have never liked anyone easily. I have never trusted softness. I have never believed a person could walk into my life by accident and change the way a room felt after she left." He looked down for a second, as if honesty cost him more than money ever could. "When you ran into this elevator, I thought I was helping you because of your mother. Then I stayed because of you. I didn't choose you because you were helpless. I chose you because even broken, you refused to be bought. Even afraid, you stood. Even after being denied, you still ran for the woman who loved you." Tears filled my eyes, but this time I didn't hide them. "I don't know how to be loved by someone like you." Then we learned slowly. "You make it sound possible." "For you," he said, "I would like to become possible." 2 weeks later, my mother was moved to a recovery center, quiet, with windows facing a garden. She complained about the soup, corrected the pillows, and told Alessio he stood too stiffly for a man visiting a patient, which made Luca turn away to hide a smile. My father tried to call once. I didn't answer. He sent a letter. My mother read it first, then handed it back. "Some apologies are written to reduce guilt, not repair harm," she said. "You don't have to open the door just because someone knocks late." So I didn't. His company lost the investment. The board removed him from control after reporters found enough of the truth. But I stopped watching after the first week. Their fall was not my healing. My healing was my mother learning to walk slowly along the hallway. My healing was sleeping through the night without hearing the ballroom laughter. My healing was looking in a mirror and no longer seeing the girl security had to remove. The patient fund opened a month later. I stood beside my mother at the small dedication, not as a charity case, not as a hidden daughter, but as the woman who'd once begged for one surgery room and now watched other families get help before desperation could break them. Alessio stood at the back, away from the cameras, where only I could see him. When our eyes met, he didn't smile for the crowd. He just gave a small nod, reminding me that this victory was mine. One evening, as the sun lowered behind the garden, Alessio found me on a bench. "Your mother threw me out. She said I was hovering and making the flowers nervous." I laughed, really laughed, and the sound surprised us both. He sat beside me, leaving the same careful space he'd always left. "She likes you," I said. She threatened me with a spoon. "That means she likes you." The silence that followed was gentle. I looked at his hands, strong and still, and thought about how many people feared them. Then I thought about the elevator door opening, his hand stopping his guards, his voice asking who made me run. I used to think love would feel like someone promising never to leave, I said. Now I think it feels more like someone staying without making you beg. Alessio looked at me, and the guarded man the city knew disappeared for a moment. Then let me stay. My heart trembled, but it didn't run. Slowly, I whispered. He nodded. Slowly. So here's what I keep coming back to all these months later. People would tell this story a dozen different ways. Some would say a dangerous man fell in love at first sight with a girl who ran into his elevator. Some would say I changed him. Some would say he saved me. And honestly, they'd all be a little bit wrong. He didn't fall for me because I looked beautiful under hotel lights. I was soaked from the rain, shaking with fear, clutching a hospital bill like it was the last thread holding my mother to this world. And he didn't save me the way people in stories like to be saved. He stood beside me until I remembered how to stand for myself. And I didn't change him by being soft. I changed him because he finally saw that love doesn't always show up dressed in silk, smiling at the right tables, speaking the right language. Sometimes love shows up breathless and humiliated and late for a surgery payment. Sometimes it forces its way into a private elevator with tears on its face and a mother's name in its mouth. The man who had never let himself love anyone didn't fall because a girl ran toward him. He fell because I was running for someone else. Because in a world full of people protecting their image, I was still protecting love. And maybe that's the real lesson underneath all of this. Your worth was never in someone else's name, someone else's approval, or someone else's permission to exist. It was always in how you showed up for the people you love, even when the whole world tried to make you feel small. If Mira's story moved you, if you felt that ache when her own father denied her, and that quiet triumph when she finally walked out with her head held high, then do me a favor and smash that like button right now. It honestly helps more than you know. Share this story with someone who needs the reminder that dignity is something no one can take unless you hand it over. And if you want more stories exactly like this one, full of heartbreak, justice, and love that arrives in the most unexpected ways, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. And drop a comment down below and tell me honestly, when Mira tore that check in half in the hospital hallway, would you have had the strength to do the same? Or would you have taken the money and walked away? There's no wrong answer, and I genuinely want to know. I read every single comment, and the best ones just might shape the next story I tell. So don't be shy. Let's hear it.